100% child size footprint. You can see the indents.
It's a strange place to find a small boot print, but everything about this case is strange. It's extremely rare in Canada for two siblings to go missing, and yet, 1 year ago, Lilly and Jack Sullivan seemingly vanished. Now, volunteers are taking to the woods once again, searching for clues.
4 months ago, this channel examined the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. At that time, police had already received hundreds of tips. Search teams had spent thousands of hours examining the surrounding terrain. Investigators had reviewed video, questioned family members, searched vehicles, examined phones, and followed possible routes away from the property. Today, Lilly and Jack are still missing. But this case has not remained frozen. More people have been formally interviewed. Thousands of additional video files have been processed. Specialized dogs have searched more of the surrounding area. Forensic examinations have continued. And court documents have revealed far more about what investigators were doing behind the scenes. Yet despite all of that, the most basic questions remain unanswered. Police have not established that the children were abducted. They have not established that Lilly and Jack died after wandering into the wilderness. They have not publicly identified a suspect, and they have not announced evidence proving that a criminal offense occurred. More than a year has passed. More than 1,000 tips have been assessed. More than 8,000 usable video files have been reviewed. Over 100 people have been formally interviewed. And authorities still cannot publicly explain how two young children disappeared from a rural property in daylight without leaving one confirmed route behind them. At some point, those numbers stop sounding reassuring. They begin to sound deeply disturbing. Because an investigation can become enormous while remaining trapped at the very beginning. Tonight, we are not going to repeat the entire story. The previous video covered the family, the property, the initial response, and the early search operation. This time, we are going to examine what has changed, which widely repeated claims are less certain than they initially appeared, and why the evidence still refuses to form one complete story. Because Lilly and Jack did not disappear inside an online theory. Something happened to them in the real world. And after more than a year of searching, the fact that no one can prove what that was should concern everyone. 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan and her 4-year-old brother Jack were reported missing on May 2, 2025, from their family home on Gairloch Road in Lansdowne, Pictou County, Nova Scotia. The house stood in a rural area surrounded by forest, streams, uneven ground, and long roads with relatively few nearby residences. The family reported that the children had apparently left the home that morning. According to court documents, their mother, Malihia Brooks Murray, called police at 10:01 a.m. Officers arrived at approximately 10:27. The last publicly known independent recording of Lilly and Jack came from the previous day. On May 1st, surveillance footage captured the children at a Dollarama store with Malihia, their stepfather Daniel Martel, and their younger sister. That recording matters because it gives investigators something solid: a location, a date, a visible image of both children. After that, the timeline becomes dependent largely on statements from people inside or around the home. Family members reported hearing or seeing Lilly and Jack on the morning of May 2nd. Those accounts may be completely accurate, but they are not the same as independent footage, digital timestamps, or an unrelated witness who can be conclusively verified. And that difference cannot simply be brushed aside. The public has repeatedly heard that the children disappeared within a narrow window that morning. But how narrow was that window really? Was the time based on a clock, a phone, a camera? Or was it reconstructed later through memory after panic had already begun? Those are not accusations. They are necessary questions. Because when two children vanish, the timeline is not background information. The timeline determines which roads matter, which vehicles matter, which cameras matter, how far the children could have traveled, and where search teams should begin. If the starting point is wrong by even 30 minutes, almost everything that follows may also shift. By April 30th, 2026, the RCMP had formally interviewed 106 people. Investigators had reviewed all 8,132 video files, considered functional enough to examine. They had assessed and prioritized 1,191 tips. They had completed or assigned 1,534 investigative tasks. Judicial authorizations allowed police to examine electronic devices, phone records, banking information, and other material connected to people close to Lilly and Jack. Human remains detection dogs had searched approximately 40 kilometers around the Lansdowne area. Forensic examinations were conducted through the RCMP's National Forensic Laboratory in Ottawa. That is an extraordinary amount of work. It shows that this case has not been ignored. But effort and progress are not the same thing. 8,000 videos mean very little if the decisive moment happened outside the view of every camera. 1,000 tips mean very little if most of them are recycled rumors, social media accusations, or theories created by people who were nowhere near Nova Scotia. More than 100 interviews mean very little if no witness can provide information that can be independently confirmed. The investigation is expanding, but publicly, the answer is not. And it is almost impossible not to feel frustrated by that. 2 children are missing, yet the public still cannot be told whether police believe they left the property alone, entered a vehicle, reached water, or disappeared before the reported morning timeline even began. The official position remains that all possibilities are open, but after more than a year, that statement is not especially comforting. All possibilities remain open also means investigators still cannot close even the first major door. The RCMP has repeatedly asked for specific, fact-based information. That request reveals another problem surrounding this case. The disappearance of Lilly and Jack has produced an enormous amount of online speculation. People have studied family interviews frame by frame. They have interpreted pauses, facial expressions, clothing, social media activity, and apparent inconsistencies as though they were trained behavioral analysts. One person appears too calm. Another appears too emotional. Someone remembers a time differently. Someone does not participate publicly in the way strangers expect. And suddenly, online audiences believe they have solved the case. But human behavior is not forensic evidence. A grieving person can speak awkwardly. A frightened person can seem detached. A parent can confuse times during an emergency. Someone can avoid cameras without hiding a crime. None of that proves innocence. But none of it proves guilt either. It is understandable that people are angry. Children vanished, and there are no answers. But when that anger turns unsupported suspicion into evidence, it does not help Lilly and Jack. It creates noise. Investigators do not need another viral theory assembled from edited interview clips. They need a vehicle registration, a photograph with metadata, a message, a location, a person who saw something and can explain exactly where and when it happened. They need information that can survive verification, because this case will not be solved by whoever sounds most confident online. It will be solved by the fact that connects the children to whatever happened next. Some of the most revealing information came from applications for search warrants and other judicial authorizations. These documents gave the public a clearer view of what investigators examined during the early stages of the case. But search warrant documents must be treated carefully. They often contain witness statements, suspicions, preliminary assessments, and information that has not been proven. They explain why police believe a search should be authorized. They do not represent a final verdict on what occurred. Still, the documents corrected or complicated several details that had circulated publicly. One of those details involved Lilly's pink blanket. During the early search, 3 family members reportedly located a piece of a pink blanket in a tree approximately 1 kilometer from the home. A photograph was shown to Malahia and Daniel, who identified the material as part of Lilly's blanket. The discovery seemed important. For the first time, there appeared to be a physical item associated with Lilly away from the property. It suggested movement, possibly even a direction. But when a police dog was brought to the location, it reportedly failed to detect the scent of either child. Then another piece of the same blanket was recovered. This second piece had been found inside a garbage bag near the end of the family's driveway. Investigators determined that both pieces came from the same blanket. And instead of making the situation clearer, the discovery made it stranger. Why was one piece in a tree approximately 1 kilometer away? Why was another piece inside a garbage bag near the driveway? Was the blanket already torn before May 2? Had part of it been discarded earlier? Could wind or wildlife have moved one fragment? Did Lilly carry any part of the blanket on the morning she disappeared? Or was the item never connected to the children's movements at all? More than a year later, there is still no public explanation. And that is difficult to accept, because the blanket is one of the very few physical items discussed in connection with the search. It belongs to Lilly. It was found in 2 different places, yet it has not publicly established where she went. This case repeatedly produces details that seem as though they should lead somewhere, then they simply stop. No clear trail, no confirmed destination, no answer. Court documents also revealed more information about polygraph examinations. Daniel Martel and Malehia Brooks Murray underwent examinations on May 12th. According to the documents, Daniel's responses were interpreted as truthful. Malehia was also assessed as truthful when answering specific questions. The exact questions were redacted. The children's biological father, Cody Sullivan, later underwent an examination, and his responses were also interpreted as truthful. Daniel's mother, Janie McKenzie, underwent a polygraph in June. However, her physiological responses were reportedly unsuitable for analysis, so no conclusion could be reached. This matters because the case has sometimes been summarized by saying that everyone passed. That is not accurate. It is equally inaccurate to treat the examinations as definitive proof. A polygraph measures physiological reactions. It does not read a person's mind. It cannot establish innocence. And in Canada, polygraph results are generally not admitted as evidence in criminal proceedings. They may help investigators decide where to focus. They cannot tell the public what happened to Lilly and Jack. The documents also included an investigator's assessment that there were no reasonable grounds, at that stage, to believe a criminal offense had occurred. That line has been repeated as though police ruled out foul play. They did not. The statement reflected what investigators could legally support with the available evidence at that particular point. There is a major difference between saying, "We have no evidence proving a crime," and saying, "We have proved that no crime occurred." The first describes a lack of evidence. The second would be a conclusion. Police have never publicly announced the second. One of the most unsettling accounts involved a woman who later told investigators that she saw 2 children on Gairloch Road on the morning of May 2nd. She described a young girl and a smaller boy walking near the railway tracks. Ahead of them stood an older woman beside an older tan or gold-colored car. The rear passenger door was open. It is easy to understand why this account received so much attention. 2 children near the area where Lilly and Jack vanished. An unknown woman. An open vehicle. It sounds like the missing piece. But the details are not nearly as strong as they first appear. The witness did not report the sighting immediately. She came forward weeks after the disappearance. By then, the case had been widely publicized. Photographs of Lilly and Jack had appeared across the country. Their ages, appearances, clothing, and location were public knowledge. The witness also reportedly described the girl she saw as appearing older than Lilly. That does not mean the woman invented the sighting. She may genuinely have seen 2 children that morning. She may sincerely believe they were Lilly and Jack. But sincerity does not guarantee accuracy. Memory changes. Details become less precise. Information learned after an event can blend with the original recollection. Police have not publicly confirmed that the children near the railway tracks were Lilly and Jack. They have not identified the older woman or connected the car to the disappearance. They have not dismissed the witness account either. And once again, the public is left with a detail that is too significant to ignore, but too uncertain to explain anything. That may be one of the most maddening aspects of this case. Almost every clue exists in the space between possible and provable. The early version of the story presented a remarkably narrow disappearance window. The children were reportedly heard playing. The property later became quiet. Then the adults realized Lilly and Jack were gone. The interval was often described as approximately 40 minutes. That framing makes the disappearance feel almost impossible. How could 2 young children vanish so completely in less than 1 hour? But the 40-minute period is not a confirmed recording. It is a reconstructed window based on reported observations and memories. There was no publicly known camera showing Lilly and Jack in the yard at one end of that window. There was no recording showing the moment they left at the other. So the exactness may be misleading. Perhaps the estimates are accurate. Perhaps they are only slightly wrong. But even a small difference matters. If the children left earlier, they could have traveled farther. More vehicles may have passed through the area. A larger section of roadway becomes relevant. If they left later, the opportunity for an accidental encounter or an abduction becomes much narrower. This should not be controversial. It is basic investigative logic. And yet discussions of this case often treat the 40-minute window as an established fact, rather than what it actually is. A reported timeline that still lacks complete independent verification. It is frustrating because the entire case appears to rest on a clock that the public cannot fully see. The simplest explanation remains that Lilly and Jack left the house and entered the surrounding wilderness. Their outdoor boots were reportedly missing. The property was surrounded by dense vegetation, streams, slopes, fallen timber, and difficult ground. Children can move surprisingly quickly. They do not recognize danger in the way adults do. They may follow an animal, a sound, a trail, or each other. Once they become frightened or disoriented, they may hide rather than respond to searchers. The environment around Gairloch Road was capable of concealing 2 small children. Search operations are also not perfect. An area can appear to have been covered while still containing spaces that are extremely difficult to inspect. Vegetation changes. Rain destroys tracks. Water moves objects. Wildlife disturbs evidence. So wandering cannot be ruled out simply because the search was large. But the theory becomes harder to accept when the lack of physical evidence is considered. 2 children would potentially create 2 sets of impressions, 2 scent sources, 2 opportunities to drop clothing or belongings, 2 bodies moving through brush. And yet investigators never publicly established a continuous route away from the home. Specialized dogs later searched approximately 40 kilometers of surrounding terrain without a publicly announced discovery. There is no confirmed resting place, no clothing recovery that explains their movement, no location where police have stated the children definitely passed. The wilderness may be vast and unforgiving, but after this level of searching, the absence of even one confirmed path is no longer a small inconvenience. It is the central problem with the wandering theory. The woods explain how children could become hidden. They do not fully explain how every reliable trace of 2 children disappeared with them. Water remains another serious possibility. Streams and rivers can be cold, fast, and difficult to search. Evidence can move far from the point of entry. Visibility may be poor. Debris can conceal remains. Conditions can change between searches. A small child does not need deep water to be in danger. The area's waterways were searched during the early operation. No publicly confirmed evidence established that Lilly or Jack entered the water. But a water search rarely offers the same certainty as searching a building or a controlled piece of land. When authorities report that nothing was found, it means nothing was detected within the locations and conditions examined. It does not always mean that nothing could have been there. That is precisely why the water theory remains so difficult. It can survive repeated searches without becoming any more provable, but it also leaves an uncomfortable question. If both children reached water together, how did they travel from the property without producing a confirmed trail? Was there one entry point? Did one child follow the other? Would neither child have stopped, cried out, turned back, or left something behind? Water may explain why remains have not been recovered. It does not automatically explain everything that would have happened before the children reached it. The possibility of another person being involved receives the most attention because it appears to explain the missing trail. A vehicle could remove 2 children quickly. Limited camera coverage could allow someone to leave the area without being clearly recorded. The roadside witness described children moving toward an adult and an open vehicle. But human involvement also requires evidence that has not been made public. There is no confirmed image of Lilly and Jack entering a car. There is no publicly identified vehicle linked to the children. No driver has been named. No ransom demand has been announced. No verified later sighting has been established. Investigators examined vehicles, digital records, phone information, and highway footage. Concerns were also raised about the children's biological father, Cody Sullivan. Police investigated him, searched relevant locations, and found no public evidence placing him near Gerlach Road during the disappearance. A stranger abduction would also require a remarkable coincidence. Someone would need to encounter two children during a relatively brief and unpredictable opportunity on a quiet rural road. That can happen. Rare events still happen. But the theory cannot be elevated above the others simply because it feels more dramatic. Human involvement could also mean someone known to the children. Police examined people close to Lilly and Jack. Phones were seized. Accounts were reviewed. Statements were compared. Vehicles were forensically examined. No family member has been publicly identified as a suspect in the disappearance. No arrest has been made in connection with Lilly and Jack. Daniel Martell was later charged in an unrelated case involving an adult complainant. Those allegations have not been proven in court. Authorities have not publicly connected those charges to the disappearance of the children. That distinction must remain clear. An accusation in another matter is not evidence in this one. Family conflict, financial difficulty, neglect concerns, or unusual behavior may be relevant background for investigators. They are not substitutes for proof. And as frustrating as the lack of answers may be, frustration does not give anyone the right to manufacture certainty. There is one possibility that does not require immediately deciding between an accident and a crime. The accepted timeline may be incomplete. That does not necessarily mean someone deliberately misled police. The morning could have been reconstructed from estimates, interrupted sleep, assumptions, and memories formed under extreme stress. Perhaps the children left earlier than anyone realized. Perhaps only one child was heard at a particular time. Perhaps a voice or sound was incorrectly placed in the sequence. Perhaps the adults underestimated how long the home had been quiet. This is where the case becomes especially unsettling, because investigators may have searched the right places based on the wrong starting time. A 30-minute difference could alter vehicle lists, camera reviews, witness opportunities, scent expectations, and the distance two children might have traveled. An hour could change the case even more. The public has been given one solid timestamp for the morning, the 10:01 call to police. But a call reporting children missing is not the same thing as proof of when they disappeared. Everything before it must be reconstructed. And after more than a year, that reconstruction still has not produced a publicly confirmed route. There is no confirmed direction away from the house. There is no verified sighting of Lilly and Jack after their disappearance. There is no publicly identified person who took them. There is no confirmed accident location. There is no clear explanation for the two pieces of Lily's blanket. There is no announced forensic result that has transformed the investigation. There is no public evidence proving that the children entered the woods, reached the water, or entered a vehicle. And there is still no official conclusion about whether their disappearance was accidental or criminal. Police may possess information that has not been released. That is normal in an active investigation. Certain details may be withheld to protect future interviews, preserve the integrity of evidence, or test whether a person has genuine knowledge. But from the public record, the case appears to contain an enormous amount of material without one decisive fact. That is not merely sad. It is infuriating. Not because investigators have done nothing. Clearly, an enormous amount of work has been completed. It is infuriating because after all that work, the disappearance still cannot be described in one reliable sequence. 2 children were alive. They were reported missing. And between those facts lies a gap large enough to contain every major theory. Publicly, there is no sign that authorities are preparing to announce a breakthrough. The latest updates have emphasized continued commitment, continued analysis, and the need for factual tips. police have acknowledged that the chance of finding Lilly and Jack alive is now very slim. Given their ages, the environment, the passage of time, and the absence of verified contact, that assessment is understandable. But the children have not been officially found. Their fate has not been legally established, and the investigation remains active because police still cannot say with certainty what happened. That phrase matters. With certainty. It is not enough for investigators to believe one scenario is more likely. They must be able to support it. They need to show where the children went. They need to connect physical evidence to a route, a person, or an event. Without that, every theory remains vulnerable to the same question. Where is the proof?
Before you start, could you just take another half step towards those mics?
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, we will start from your left to the right. We'll limit each reporter to one question, one follow-up. If there's time after that, we'll go back around for another round of questions. Thank you. Rob, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming today. As you can see by our news release, we don't have new information to put out there. Our investigators continue to actively drive this investigation forward and follow up on every tip and lead that we receive. I will answer a few of your questions. Sorry to the left.
So we'll start on your left, and if you could just state your name and the agency where you're from, and we'll proceed that way.
Can you address the camera when you answer?
Sure, no problem.
Mark Hodgins, 95.7 News Radio. So year-long investigation now, still not much information. Do you feel there are people out there that might be able to give you information that can lead you somewhere?
Oh, absolutely. We really would like the public to consider, if they do have any information, real factual-based information, to please contact us at the numbers provided. We seek anything we can find so that we can follow up and find new leads, new avenues to find information.
That's it.
Jacob Moore with Acadia Broadcasting. What sort of level of new information or new discovery do you need for this to potentially move from a missing persons case to something else, potentially something criminal or suspicious?
Sure. It's hard to really put a label on what exactly we'd need, as you can imagine. But we just need facts and evidence that support criminality. And once we have that, we make all of our decisions based on the evidence that we collect. Once we have that evidence, then we'll move forward in those areas if that's appropriate.
In your news release this morning, you talked about wanting to have more fact-based tips from the
Yes.
public. Can you tell us what you meant by that? And I have a follow-up.
Sure. I mean, everybody is exposed to social media throughout their daily lives, and sometimes social media can get fairly speculative and sometimes not necessarily based in truth or fact. The information we need isn't necessarily speculation or thoughts or theories. We'd like information that actually points us in a direction to try and find out things that have taken place. So I just find sometimes social media can be a little bit murky. So
On social media, can you talk to us about how, when tips come from that kind of a source, or people are
sure.
relating tips that they've heard on social media, how the impact that has on the investigation? Because I understand you have to chase those down anyway.
Well, obviously, when we investigate something, we try and gather every piece of information we possibly can about the situation. So when we get a tip, a speculative tip, then we're required, we're duty-bound to follow down all leads to either corroborate or uncorroborate that particular tip. So when we get things that really are, very speculative, it creates work for us that, of course, takes away from maybe better areas that we could focus on sometimes. So it just helps for us in our stuff. People consider, is this something that is factual, something the police can find more information on? So does that answer your question? Okay.
What does approaching the 1 year mean for the investigation? What does approaching the 1 year mark mean for the investigation? Does it change any of the results of maybe even getting closer to finding the kids?
Well, it's of course been a long investigation. So over the last number of months, we've gone through a lot of the information we have, and of course, we're new leads. But I guess this investigation was always going to take time. There's been a lot of tips, a lot of interviews, and a lot of video that we've had to review, and of course, other avenues of different areas where we want to collect and things. So it takes a long time to go through all that and do it. But that's where the investigation stands.
Holly Boas, the Chronicle Herald. You mentioned the amount of content you guys have had to go through, and we know there's been this kind of rise of AI generated
Yeah.
content. Could you kind of speak a bit more on that?
Well, obviously, whenever you collect any electronic data, you have to make sure that there's integrity related to that data. So, of course, that creates extra steps. But we have the capabilities in the RCMP to deal with those things. So, yeah.
Gentlemen with Radio Canada, I'll ask my question in English, but if it can be answered in French.
Certainly.
And my phone already asked, what are we approaching with the 1 year? You said there's nothing new, but what are you hoping to see next?
We're going to continue to gather whatever information is out there, take any tips from the public and follow up on those, and we'll make our investigative decisions based on those facts.
I can provide that in French if you want, Rob. Alors, en français, vraiment avec l'année qui s'est poursuivie, l'enquête se poursuit. Nos enquêteurs suivent tous les renseignements. On poursuit l'enquête qui va continuer à se poursuivre jusqu'à temps qu'on trouve qu'est-ce qui est arrivé aux enfants.
Are there particular challenges, as some colleagues talked about, like AI content, social media? Are there specific challenges in your investigation right now that you're facing that maybe weren't there at the beginning?
I can't speak to a specific challenge. I think it's more of a general comment about social media and AI impacts on policing, right? So it's just things that we have to consider nowadays. So.
Est-ce que vous pourriez juste dire l'effet de l'intelligence artificielle?
Oui, absolument. En ce qui concerne l'intelligence artificielle, c'est certain que nous, on enquête les faits. On a des enquêteurs, des ressources spécialisées vraiment pour filtrer ça, pour aller de l'avant. C'est certain qu'on demande aux gens qui ont des faits de venir de l'avant contacter les policiers.
Hi, Lindsay Jones from the Globe and Mail.
Hi, Lindsay.
To the outside world, seeing this press release today, many people might assume that the case is at a standstill, that the investigation is at a standstill. What can you say to tell the public or convince the public that what you're doing, that you're making progress, if you're making progress at all over these last 6 months or so?
Ever since this began, the RCMP has been actively engaged in pursuing the answers as to what happened with Jack and Lilly. This is a critical question for our community. When 2 young children go missing and we have no answers, so we've not let up the steam, and we won't. Our investigators, our parents, as I've said before, we're families, and we want answers as much as everybody else. We haven't stopped and we won't. We've engaged units from across Canada. We continue to engage those units to support us where needed. We've brought in specialized services for any area that's required, whether it be testing or looking at our social media for AI or whatever other specialized areas, human remains detection dogs. And we won't stop. If we see something we can leverage that'll help us find answers, we'll take that.
But are you any closer to knowing what happened to the kids? When I spoke with you in December, you said you were forming pictures of what may have happened, but we still don't know. There's still no evidence of abduction or foul play or anything to go on.
Yeah, we continue to gather information to develop that picture, and we have to review all the information that comes in when we make decisions. Of course, there is an active investigation. I'm not going to get into all the details of it, but we are pursuing all avenues available to us.
Angela Capobianco, Global News Halifax. Apologies if this was asked already, but I know the press release says fact-based tips.
Yes.
What exactly are you looking for when you need fact-based?
Well, something that can be corroborated, something that's less than rumor or, this person said, that person said, something that we can find facts to follow up on to show whether things are true or false. Things like that. Perhaps there's evidence or hard, tangible evidence of some kind. Maybe I'm just tossing out possibilities, but something that we're able to work with to find something out, not necessarily just some random theory that we have to piece through. So does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
And I know that there is a volunteer search this weekend. Does RCMP have any plans of doing another search for Lansdowne Station at this time?
We don't have any plans at this time. We appreciate the efforts from the different groups that are trying to support our community with locating these 2 missing children, and we've been in contact with them. So, it's good to see communities step up, but we don't have anything planned at this time.
Sorry. Hey, Rob, it's Paul, volunteer.
Yes.
CTV. Read the release, 106 interviews, polygraphs. I think this was reported in the fall, but we asked
Sure.
setting. The polygraph, family members, community members, can you use a bit of specificity or just a
Sure.
polygraph?
Generally, we've interviewed different people related to the circumstances here. I'm not going to get into specifics of it, but there's been a few different polygraphs done, and that's, of course, a tool that we use as part of our investigation. So, not just family, but, there's been different people polygraphed. So,
My follow-up would be just the investigation in general, the pressure on the province. I spoke with a criminologist from St. Thomas University, and he said in a case like this, it's hard on the family, it's hard on the community, it's hard on the investigators. Can you just offer a comment on how pressurized an investigation this is? Because there's obviously a lot of emotion injected into it because of these two young children.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've mentioned this a couple of times. Our investigators feel the pressure. And they put it on themselves. As much as everybody is pressuring us, we pressure ourselves almost doubly as much as that. So, but they're committed to finding answers. Everybody wants answers to this, to what's happened here, and we'll continue to follow all avenues that are available to us until we have those answers.
Ali Thompson with CBC News. This case is extremely rare. For two siblings to disappear without a trace, no answers 1 year later, it's virtually unheard of. What challenges does that present to the RCMP?
Well, of course, any time goes by, there may be evidence lost or information that never that doesn't get found. It, of course, affects people's memories and stuff too when we go to do interviews. Like, there are impacts on the investigation, but at the end of the day, investigations sometimes take time, especially when you're dealing with the volume of information that we're dealing with in this particular case, and we have to get it right. So.
What is your plan to find Lilly and Jack?
Again, we continue to gather and look for any avenue to find information that'll help us. Again, if there's members of the public who have factual evidence-based information that feel that can support us in our investigation, please call us. And we will make our decisions based on that. I can't really say what exactly the plan is other than to keep working, finding the information we need, and then we will find the answers to what happened to Lilly and Jack.
Any follow-up question, CP? I know you had one earlier, so.
Could we just repeat in French just how rare this is a case and what challenges it presents?
Oui, alors la question en anglais, c'était vraiment si ce dossier c'est rare. En effet, c'est extrêmement rare de voir un frère ou une sœur vraiment disparaître sans trace. Et nos enquêteurs poursuivent l'enquête, on cherche des faits, on poursuit tous les renseignements, vraiment un à un. On parle des milliers de documents qui ont été revisés, vidéos, des entrevues, des polygraphes. Alors, on poursuit toutes les avenues pour vraiment trouver Lilly et Jack, savoir qu'est-ce qui est arrivé. Merci.
I just had one question.
Sure.
You talked about how hard your officers are working and how much pressure there is. And there is a perception, there may be a perception out there that this investigation has been stalled and it's not getting anywhere. Could you comment on the idea, I'm not asking you to reveal anything, that there are things happening behind the scenes that the police just cannot talk about?
Well, in any criminal investigation, in order to protect the case here, we're gathering that information, and there's operational security related to the information we gather. If people learn different things, that can impact our ability to gather things in a general sense, right? But it's just, we have to maintain the security of what we're doing too, right? So it could impact our ability to gather things later, so.
You mentioned investigations like this take time.
Yeah.
Besides the volume of tips, what can you say about why investigations like this do take time?
Well, even when it comes to just interviewing people, sometimes that doesn't happen immediately. Sometimes it takes time to make arrangements. There's all kinds of things that can get in the way, delays here and there, whether you're dealing with people. So sometimes some of the tips take a lot longer to follow up with because they're just more in depth, the things we have to do, right? So without getting into a bunch of details, there's just a lot of work to be done. So.
Are you confident that you're going to get there in the end?
Yeah, we'll continue to work. We'll gather all the information we have, and on those answers, we'll make our decisions to move forward. I'm confident we'll be able to gather the information we need to move this investigation where it needs to go.
Do you have any information on how families coping with this? If we're now
I'm not going to talk specifically about family impacts, but in general, in any circumstance like this, there's impacts on the family, and my heart goes out to them. They've been working with us and engaged with our team, and we appreciate that. And it's not an easy time for family, and that really comes back to the social media point that can cause a lot of pain and grief for our grieving family members. So, I don't have any specific comment, just general that does have impacts on families, big time.
You've talked about what you've already worked through, but what sort of evidence have you yet to explore? Is there any amount of tips that maybe not are rumors, but that you're still looking at?
I mean, I really can't put we need this, or this is what it looks like. Every investigation is different, right? So.
All right, we'll take one last question, and that'll be it for today. Thank you.
I just had a very simple question. Can you confirm that as of today, there's no evidence of an abduction?
We don't have any evidence of an abduction at this point in time.
And by the same token, you have no evidence or reason to believe that this is a criminal matter?
Again, we continue to collect information. We will make our decisions based on that. But as of right now, we're still investigating this as a missing persons investigation. Right?
Do you have a working theory without saying what that is?
Again, we have avenues that we're traveling down, and we're considering all potential. So.
I think the last time RCMP spoke with maybe was somewhere in the fall, and would you say from then to now that you've made any progress, or?
Oh, we've definitely made progress on going through the things we need to go through. Like, we're working every day to go down the roads we need to go down. So we have made forward progress, but it does take time. So
one more question.
Last one, Lindsay. That's it.
Do you believe Jack and Lilly are alive or dead?
I think I've already said that before. I think it was my first press debrief.
People are still searching.
Yeah, I know, and well, it hasn't changed. I think the chances that Jack and Lilly are alive are very slim. So.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Merci beaucoup.
4 months after our previous examination of this case, Lilly and Jack Sullivan remain missing. The investigation has grown. The file contains more interviews, more tasks, more footage, more searches, and more forensic work than it did before. But an expanding file is not the same as an approaching answer. The last publicly known independent video places Lilly and Jack with their family on May 1st, 2025. At 10:01 the following morning, they were reported missing. Between those two confirmed points lies an unresolved period reconstructed through family statements, physical items, digital information, and witness accounts. Some of those details may be accurate. Some may be incomplete. Some may be irrelevant. The problem is that the public still cannot tell which is which. The blanket belongs to Lilly, but does not establish her route. The roadside witness may have seen something important, but the account came weeks later and has never been publicly confirmed. The wilderness is dangerous, but no continuous trail was found. The water is difficult to eliminate, but no entry point has been established. Human involvement could explain the disappearance, but no person or vehicle has been publicly connected to the children. And the morning timeline may be correct, but its key moments are not independently visible. These possibilities cannot all be true, yet none has been supported strongly enough to close the others. After more than 1 year, authorities continue to say that all possibilities remain open. But those words should not be mistaken for progress. They reveal just how little has been established. More than 1,000 tips, more than 8,000 reviewed video files, over 100 formal interviews, dozens of kilometers searched by specialized dogs, and still, Not one publicly confirmed route showing where 2 children went. It is almost impossible not to feel angry. Not angry enough to accuse people without evidence. Not angry enough to turn rumors into facts. But angry that Lilly and Jack can remain missing while the case continues to circle the same possibilities. Angry that a 40-minute window was repeated, as though it were precise when the public cannot independently verify both ends of it. Angry that physical clues exist without explanations. Angry that thousands of pieces of information have not produced the one fact that matters. Where did the children go? Perhaps that fact is already inside the investigative file, waiting for another piece of evidence to make it understandable. Perhaps someone witnessed something they considered insignificant. Perhaps a vehicle passed a camera just outside the relevant frame. Perhaps the true timeline begins earlier than investigators were first told. Or perhaps one person knows exactly what happened and has never given police the complete truth. Until evidence establishes the answer, every confident explanation remains a theory. Lilly and Jack deserve better than theories. They deserve an investigation that continues until the gap between May Warren and the 10:01 call is no longer empty. They deserve more than statistics, more than searches without results, more than another anniversary appeal asking for information. They deserve to be found. And after more than a year, the most disturbing part of this case is no longer only that 2 children disappeared. It is that an investigation of this size still cannot publicly explain the first step they took after leaving the house. This is her dark side, and this case is far from over.